prolific Australian filmmaker Nathan Hill. We're here on set in between takes on your new film today in Melbourne. What a pleasure to see you again. Thanks for your time.
Pleasure. Great to see you again.
20 years experience within the film industry, both on screen and behind the camera. Director, writer, producer, author, jack of all trades really. And from your uncle owning the first VHS shop in Victoria to, I think, and you have another uncle who did stuff in the war as well.
Well, the grandfather was in the war, but he was a projectionist, but my other uncle was a chief carpenter.
Oh, wow. Yeah. So it's a pretty strong family influence.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Tell us about where it all started for you.
I think where it all started probably was just this kind of innate ability to want to perform and act and entertain. You know, so like if I go right back, I can kind of see my grandfather, who was a pianist and a projectionist, you know, he would screen films at home and then play live. So that's kind of the first image, is kind of like black and white horror films and him playing piano.
Wow.
Beyond that, it's kind of like acting in church fetes. But, you know, I would build my own sets and, you know, it would be a congregation, and it was a very healthy environment and a lot of positivity and, a nice sort of, you know, origin there, roots, pretty strong. After that, it's kind of work experience with my uncle, who was a chief carpenter. He'd done, you know, he'd built Moby Dick, Noah's Ark, Queen of the Damned, which is what we worked on together. But then there was my other uncle, David, who's also my godfather. And he had opened up one of the first video stores in Melbourne. Oh, wow. This is 1979, 1980. And I remember him taking me into the store after hours, you know, when he closed up, to get some films to bring back to the house and watch. And one of them was American Werewolf in London, which was the first horror I saw in colour.
Oh, wow.
And it had this profound impact. But I remember there was a shower sex scene, and my mother ran into the room and covered my eyes. Now, I don't know if this kind of had an impact on my later work, but it was kind of like what was taboo became the thing I wanted to know more about. I think that had a really deep psychological effect. So, because, you know, everyone knows a lot of my films are erotic thriller. Yeah. And it's a genre I'm really passionate about. So horror roots, and then kind of, I guess, progression into thrillers. But I've cross-referenced, you know, because I love cinema. I do it all.
It's amazing. And, you know, and it's great to know that you then went on to film school and at Pioneers there, 5 years at film school.
Where I studied with your brother.
Absolutely.
Which is amazing, full circle. Talking to you today and knowing that is incredible. We did a 2-year diploma, but then I kind of wanted to keep going. So I went to the coordinators and I said, can we make it 3 years? Can I re-enroll? And they said, well, we're going to go to the State Training Board and try and get approval. You'll be the guinea pig as such. So we did the 3rd year by myself. Then they got approval for advanced diploma. Then guys started coming back. So it ended up being 4 years, but I was enrolled for 5. Because in the 5th year, I just enrolled to get all the gear so I could make my first commercial feature. It was cheaper.
Amazing.
To do it that way.
And the Impasse was one of the first films that you were in. Tell us about that.
One of the short films.
One of the short films, yeah.
Yeah, there was this kind of, this incredible year. I don't know if it was 1st or 2nd year film school. I must have acted in every movie. You know, it was like, I think I did 23 films as a lead just in that year. And when you do that, you've got so much experience. You know, you can't get a better kind of filmic experience once you've done that. You know how to act because you've done it. You know, it would have been every genre, every different coloured style of hair. You know what I mean? Like I literally was reading a script and getting my hair dyed for a character I'm playing the next week. It was just go, 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 go. Worked with all the guys. And was just really passionate about it. It was just a freight train. You know, once you jumped on the tracks, boom, you're gone.
Great analogy there. And as you say, it's really well-rounded in terms of the experience you got acting, and then obviously you're also a director. And
well, what I found was that a lot of guys that wanted to act that hadn't got into drama went and did film school. There was kind of every now and then you'd see somebody. And there was a guy, Dame Hill, who went on to become quite a well-known actor who sadly has passed away. He was a friend of mine. And we used to pretend we were brothers because we had the same surname. But he was like that. He and I were doing a similar thing. And I, funnily enough, bumped into him at a NIDA audition which I kind of did for practice. I didn't really want to go there, but I wanted to at least have the experience and say I've done the contemporary monologue, I've done the Shakespearean monologue. And so, yeah, whilst I was there on the auditions, I saw a whole bunch of guys there that I had already directed, and that was funny because I was like, Nathan, what are you doing here? So,
The 6 Degrees of Nathan Hill.
love it.
And I guess as a director, what motivates you? What drives you?
It's kind of like when I was once at a screening where Roman Polanski was live via satellite, and he answered it exactly how I kind of feel about it myself, which is you've got to be inspired, and you don't really know how that's going to happen. So I did one movie, I Portrait, where I didn't think I was even going to make that film, but one of the actors in it just had an incredible concept, and through talking to her one day, it just kind of sparked the idea. And I need to really be inspired. Like I need to go home and still be thinking about it after I've met someone or whatnot. And it needs to be encapsulating to a point. Like when I wake up in the morning, if I'm obsessed with the idea, then I know I'm going to make the film. If I'm not obsessed with it, I won't do it. But you never really know how that's going to come about.
Yeah.
It's in waves and it happens for different reasons.
It's a strong element of passion that's at play for sure. And, and you can see that passion in the films that you've directed. You've gone on to direct 12 feature films. One of your big ones, Revenge of the White Devil.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, tell us about that.
A few different translations. You can be Revenge of the White Devil, you can be Revenge of the Guaylo. In Germany, strangely, they've called it Drive 2, which is incredible because I love Drive. That was really a bit of a mission. That was trying to find really good Asian talent in Melbourne, because I knew they existed, and this was a really long and gated process. It went for about a year trying to find the right people to make this film. But that was a movie that kind of hinged on casting, because I didn't just do it willy-nilly. I waited until I had the right characters, and it took a long time. But that's probably my passion for martial arts. I mean, even when you go back to some of the student films, I'm putting them for either for like the sidekick or the side splits, or because I want to fire the gun, or John Fox always pops up. I must have done 10 movies with him. So yeah, I guess that one was probably a bit more of my passion for the Orient, let's say.
And now, Nathan, the first time I saw you was in my brother's first feature film, one of his first feature films. You acted in The Impasse. You're one of the OGs in this industry. It's amazing to see you again.
I just love that that's the connection we've got. Paul was amazing, and he was really clever, and he picked up on a short film I'd been in called The Huntsman, which is a martial arts film, and he loved it. I remember screening it at film school, and I saw his sort of ears prick up, and I thought, he's going to do something. And he did. He virtually kind of recreated it, because we had the same armourer, John Fox, but this time obviously I was the lead. I wasn't like one of the supporting guys. And it was, had a big impact. I remember, probably maybe the only film in that year that had proper pyrotechnics, and we fired guns, and we did a lot. It was a really powerhouse, kick-ass short.
Oh, I still remember the front of the film of the cover of you holding a gun, in your pose. And how did it feel being on set and in that kind of film?
The intro to that film, there was this one shot of me that's one of my favourite ever shots, where I'm walking down Barclay Street in Footscray at night. The lighting and what I'm wearing and everything. I got so many compliments from this one shot. Like, I literally remember sort of going home, and I was dating a girl that was in film school at the time. She was the Goss model, and her roommate came out, I think when I was getting into makeup for that day, for that scene, and she kind of stopped and was like, and I said, thank you. And my girlfriend, I remember her getting really jealous. And I'll never forget it, because it was just an image that I just loved. I think I was just really in the zone.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, and you are also Lady Terror. Tell us about the inspiration behind this rather interesting thriller.
Lady Terror's close to my heart because I really dedicated it to Corey Haim, and Corey Haim is one of my favourite actors growing up as a kid, and I had him attached to a film, and then he passed away. So, and it stayed with me. I could never shake it. It was a monkey on my back. And the film he was in that I loved the most, which was called Blown Away, I just kept rewatching this film. I thought, I've got to make my own, but I'm going to dedicate it to him. So that was the reason behind that one. Again, really tricky casting process. It wasn't until I found Felida Murphy that everything came together. She's an amazing actress, and with the audition process, I knew straight away it was her when she sort of came to the room and then started speaking. It was quite a magical experience when stuff like that happens, because you are conjuring and creating this story, first of all, you don't even know if it's any good. Secondly, you don't know if anyone's going to like it. Thirdly, you don't know if anyone else is going to come to the party. Fourthly, do you have the energy to go ahead with it, which could be 1, 2, 3 years of your life? It's a big commitment. And so, finding the right people, and they've got to inspire you as well. You've got to find people that love you and your idea and want to work with you, and then you roll with that. It's kind of going with the grain. As soon as something goes against the grain, I'm out.
Yeah.
I'm not going to waste my time. It's not worth it.
But that's why it's so magical when it does work, because there's so many elements coming together.
And this is the drug, and this is we've hinged on it because this is the reason why people make movies. And a lot of people, they have an experience like what I had in Queen of the Damned. It's so memorable and so unforgettable. It is a bit of a drug. You want it again. I think Tom Cruise is the best example of this. He calls it a full filmic experience. He's looking for the full, and I know what that means. It means pre-production, production, post, premiere, release. It encapsulates a full process, and there is nothing else like it in the world if you get it right.
How satisfying is it when you do get it right?
Oh, well, it's the best thing in the world,
yeah.
And that's what's kept me in it. Because apart from I'm not going to say mundane living, but as humans, we're limited. We have to rise, we have to work, we have to put bread on the table. We have to do it all again the next day. So when you're trying to find those inspirations in your life and what you're here to do and what you want to do, and also what you can do with the limited time you've got. These are all factors.
Absolutely, and even an element of satisfaction in seeing the audience reaction. Like, how do you feel when you're in a cinema and you're seeing audiences enjoy your film, like laughing or crying or showing displays of emotion?
Absolutely. I mean, when I did Tomboys at ACMI, it was a full house. It must have been over 500 people.
Wow.
People were crying and screaming and yelling at all the right points, and I was sitting in the back row just going... it's just it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Had a similar thing recently. I just did cast and crew screening for my new sci-fi film Alien Love, and at the end of it I sort of turned and looked at everyone's faces, and I could tell they really enjoyed it. They were glad to be a part of it, and they understood it. And quite often you're making films and you're not understood. What really kind of peeves me nowadays is when you kind of get an audience once the film's out and it's released, and you come across the haters or the trolls or the keyboard warriors, and they haven't understood it, so they'll attack your work. You kind of feel like saying, why did you spend money to watch it? Like, surely you saw the trailer, surely you read the synopsis. Like, movies, there are so many sub-genres. If it's not your cup of tea, don't go there. Don't waste your time.
Yeah,
I remember talking to a stepfather of mine once, and we were talking about a movie I loved, and it's a good analogy. And I said, have you seen blah, blah, blah? And he goes, oh, no, it's 3 hours. And I said, so what? And he said, I don't have 3 hours of my life to spend on that. Like, some people are really serious about their time.
Yeah.
So, you get to make choices.
And how do you deal with those people who display unsavoury opinions to your films sometimes?
Look, I mean, everyone's got an opinion. I think if you don't persist with your vision and your purpose, these are all distractions. These are things trying to take that freight train off the tracks, so to speak.
Absolutely.
You have to have that laser focus, but also when you make a movie and you put it out there, you are inviting it also. You can't really make a movie unless you've got a thick skin, otherwise you won't last. And I was talking to one of our crew friends earlier about a director I know that got trashed online, and so he didn't make another film. It was kind of sad, because he let the bigots and the haters get the better of him, so...
But, when your passion and your knowledge of your film is that strong, you've got to stick with that
it's
regardless.
It doesn't prevail.
Everything else is,
kind of secondary.
Secondary, absolutely.
Yeah.
And in terms of acting, in Girl at the Window, you played a cop, and Alien Love, you played an astronaut. How do you prepare for these different kind of roles?
A lot of research. I mean, it's easy because when I started acting seriously, I kind of went from a PI to a cop to an ex-cop to a detective. Yeah. They're all in the same field. And so sometimes you kind of put them together. People might not know, but I once did a corporate video for Victoria Police. And I played a private investigator, and it was actually a training video that they will use within the force. If you want to become a PI, you'd watch this video, and I was leading this in this bloody training video. So I've had, experience in those ways. Playing an astronaut, I guess it's probably, again, it's more research, it's genre, It's looking at the other films that have done the same, but trying to, using your line producer to your advantage and saying, hey, if I do this, does that work? Or, so I've got a lot of guidance. I've got producers helping me with that, and sometimes I'd make a call and they'd say, no, you don't do that. And I'd, oh, okay, and then you'd have to correct the script. So there's always a technical advisor. Because you don't want to look stupid, it's got to make sense.
So it's quite a blessing to have your line director, your technical advisor on set.
You've got to have it if you're serious. And if you're going for a release, you can't skip around the corners on that one.
Exactly, and that's the thing about your films, Nathan. You never skip the corners. You always do things properly, wholeheartedly. You can see that in your films, and you seem to have a penchant for writing lead characters as anti-heroes. Tell us about that. Why do you like a good anti-hero?
I like anti-heroes. It's hard to get the technical term because I think some of the characters are anti-heroes, but some of them are just a bit ambiguous. I like films where it's kind of, I guess, going against the grain, because otherwise, it's that whole thing about if you're not doing something different, you're not doing anything. And we've all got our limits. I don't play the Baywatch guy. I'm not an AFL guy. I'm not a gym junkie. So I'm using my canvas, to my advantage in the best way I can, and that's how I found my genre. So, for example, with the thrillers, there's kind of nobody else in town doing that. And I would make friends with guys like, name pops into my head, Dan Armstrong. He does a film a certain way that I don't. I think of Mark Bacchitis. He does films that I don't. So, like the local guys, we're not competing against each other. So, and I kind of see it the same way it would be in Hollywood when you've got Coppola and Lucas and Spielberg. They're all friends. They're doing slightly different movies. So I guess you've got to find that pathway and then kind of claim it and make it your own. And I think I've done that because now I'm getting press where it's like, oh, he's that guy. Like it's identifiable.
It's your point of difference.
And sometimes it's schlock. Sometimes they might say, oh, it's schlock, it's low budget, it's gritty. I don't care. It is what it is,
Sure, it's just swearing in this interview. I was going to say, fuck it, who cares what people think? Because
exactly.
you're paving, you're following a theme that works, and it's not really something that people do, and
not in Melbourne, Australia.
Exactly, and it's refreshing as well to and it's relatable as well because people
shake up the mould. I would love it if an actor who was starting out in Melbourne and really wanted to get in amongst it had the attitude of, I'm going to go and do a Nathan Hill film, then I'm going to go and do a Greg McLean or a Rolf de Heer. There's so, I'd love it if I was in that hemisphere where they thought that doing one of my films was ticking a box on their journey, on their path. I think that's all I've really wanted to be is that kind of I'm trying to think of the word. I guess just that figure, that has his own genre, where if you're an actor and you kind of want to go and do one of those sorts of films, then you've got that in your repertoire. It's a win-win.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're giving people the experience too, so that's a great thing.
Yeah, exactly.
And you've worked with some big names and sometimes in some unusual circumstances. Radio Samurai 2002. Bit of a recurring motif, like Tarantino with his feet, maybe you and decapitated heads. Tell us about what it was like carrying Dennis Cord's noggin down an RMIT stairwell in Radio Samurai.
That's classic because the guy who did the head cast on Dennis Cord, he's now like one of the best in the industry, and he's on every film. And he actually did Hacksaw Ridge, which I had a little hand in helping with some cast. Larry. So that head became kind of this iconic prop that would kind of follow me into other movies. And I guess it was just so well made, and it was expensive, so it sort of made its way around the indie circuit. I can think of 3 films where I've seen this prop kind of pop up. And I think I might have told you once before that in Hollywood it was similar with, I think when Sean Penn made his first movie, there was a severed hand that I think he'd got from Charlie Sheen, and maybe it was it might have been even off the set of Apocalypse Now, but like they'd got this fake hand and it kind of made its way into all the movies. Yeah, and that was kind of like the Dennis Cord head in Melbourne.
And where did the Dennis Cord head end up?
My guess is that it's in storage with a guy who I know that lives in Hawthorne. I've got a pretty good feeling it's still around. I could probably dig it up if I really wanted to.
Put it on eBay.
You never know, it might go for a bit.
Oh, love it. And Sleeping Dogs, tell us what it was like working alongside Russell Crowe.
Look, this was interesting because one of my agents was a producer of Romper Stomper, and I love that. Yeah, he was a producer of Romper Stomper, and I've always loved that film. And kind of, fantasized about meeting or working with Russell Crowe. Never thought it would happen. And the funny thing is when I left that agent, I got the job to work with Russell because they knew each other. It was virtually the same agent.
Oh, wow.
But I got a phone call, and it was a weird one because the casting said, we want a guy in this scene who's not going to kind of lose his shit. And I was like, you called the right guy.
How do you keep your cool during those moments? How do you compose yourself when you're such a,
Yeah, it's a good question.
You appreciate people like that.
I think when I go back to Queen of the Damned, I remember because there were such heavyweights there, and I was coming out of the gates, and when I got on stage and did my bit, my uncle came up to me and he said, you're just as good as these guys. It's just opportunity. And that really empowered me. And funnily enough, because one of the celebrities I really like is Sam Jones, who played Flash Gordon. And when I met him at a Melbourne thing not that long ago, I asked him a question, and I said, what was it like to work with Max von Sydow? Because he was obviously a giant in cinema. And he said, well, I just realised that he was just another human being and I'm just as good and I can do this. And he empowered himself. It was amazing hearing him say that because that's what happened to me. So I think everyone's got heroes. Like even the actor that you're following on your socials, he's following somebody. It's generational.
Yeah.
It just continues on. So yeah, I just think people are people. That we're all human beings, and some have had great opportunity. The great thing about Russell Crowe, though, is his acceptance speech at the Academy Awards. I think is the best one that's ever been said, and he dedicates his award to the people that are on the downside of opportunity.
Yeah,
which is a really smart, clever thing that he said because he empowered all those people that hadn't had the opportunity, and he got more fans from that.
It's so important.
And so I kind of look into it a little bit deeper. So I kind of look at the person and their career or whatnot, and then I'll because I know myself so well. That's one thing I've done is I've analysed myself to the point of ridiculous, so that I'm comfortable in any situation. So when I come into a casting point of view or a situation or whatnot or a job, I'm coming at you level-headed. I'm not coming behind. I don't care if you get an Academy or not. I don't. It's not about that. It's not about that.
Yeah.
It's experience. Everyone's playing a deck of cards they were given. You can only play out the cards you were given. So you can't really sort of compete against someone else. You can't be jealous of somebody else because that's not what it's about. It's about you analysing your cards and what you can do with what you're given.
I love that profound analogy. It's really apt. And what was it like working with Aaliyah? R.I.P.
I think I was too young to really know how big she was. I can only remember when she was grossed out by them putting prosthetic butts on her arms and, how beautiful she was. And she actually flirted quite a bit with Stuart Townsend. There was a lot of flirting going on. And he looked great. He was in great shape.
And you played a vampire.
Yeah, but I was a stand-in and a double, and my uncle being the chief carpenter, I was on set for months. So the featured extra part was almost a reward. But when the trailer came out, everyone thought I was Matthew Newton.
Well, you look like David Bowie a little bit too, actually.
I appreciate that. Well, that's funny you said that because the next audition brief I got was David Bowie type, which was the villain in The Knowing, opposite Nicolas Cage, and I believe I was runner-up to that.
Wow. Do you reckon you typecast a little bit, maybe?
Maybe, but this is what we're getting back to before. You've got to cash in on what God's given you.
Yeah.
So I don't go too much against the grain. I wouldn't. First, I'm not going to audition for characters that don't suit me, and I'm not going to cast anyway. You've got to go with what you've been given.
Absolutely.
But I love all that. I love character acting.
Yeah.
I love all that.
I love
happily
it.
play an alien, happily play a vampire. It's my bag.
You're versatile.
It's my bag. It's the genre I love.
It's a genre, exactly right. And I loved how you mentioned when you were talking about Russell Crowe, the Romper Stomper, because obviously the opening scene was filmed in Footscray, and that's where you studied in.
Right.
You studied in Footscray.
That's a really good point.
Your old romping stomping grounds.
That's a really good way to put it. Yeah. And I remember when I saw that in the cinema, and as soon as you saw Footscray Station, everyone laughed because they were like, "Yeah, if there's going to be skinheads anywhere, it'll be that." But that was also an era. I don't think you could make that film now.
Yeah.
It'd be deemed highly racist, so it'd be really hard to make that film now.
Yeah,
it was a whole different era.
Yeah,
so.
It's one of those things that it's unfortunate that you directors don't have maybe as much freedom.
Correct. And sometimes I'll get pulled up even now. I'll have come up with a concept and someone will say, like things are changing, you know, and I understand that. And you can kind of evolve and go with it, or you can stop, or you can try and make your own thing anyway. It's tricky, man.
How do you deal with those frustrations and challenges?
Evolution. I mean, I'm kind of spinning plates, so I'm always kind of, I've got enough going on. I don't need to kind of worry about it. Like someone rang me last night or texted me and said, we've got to do a movie. And I said, dude, I'm in the middle of 3 different films. Like, I don't even have... and he said, call me when they're done. And I'm like, that's going to be, a couple of years away? Like,
it's hard to say when a film's going to be done as well. You never know. There's so much to it.
It frustrates me, though, I'm going to maybe get in trouble for saying this in an interview, but people think they've got a luxury to take their time with indie film. And you don't, because you've actually got to be faster. Because you're losing your audience quicker, you're losing the people's interest quicker that were involved, you're up against the clock. I mean, I know someone who's made a film during COVID and they're wearing masks, they're still in the edit suite. By the time it comes out, you're over it. You don't want to see that. You don't want to know about COVID. You've had enough of COVID. Yeah. So you've got to be careful. And filmic timelines, and you can be stifled in a creative process if you don't finish your last film. You can't really get on to the next. So I've seen a lot of filmmakers get stuck, and I go, and I can see it straight away. They're stuck in a rut. And only you can pull yourself out of it. You've really got to prioritise. So this is the thing people don't realise about me. A lot of sacrifice. I don't have children. I've chosen to make films that have kids. That's a big decision. That's a big life choice. Yeah. And you've got to be damn sure you own that if that's really what you want to do with your life. Because we're talking tombstones now. What's going to say on your tombstone?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Because probably a personal question. So are you saying that you decided not to have children so you could pursue full time in your films?
I really look at the films like children because you give birth. You've got to nurture them. It's like watering a plant. You put the training wheels on, you let them go to school, and that's kind of giving them out to the world, let them go and then live their own life. So metaphorically speaking, I remember going to Christmas, dinners, annually and seeing relatives that you only see once a year, and they'd say, when are you going to have kids? And my answer would be, haven't you seen any of my movies?
Exactly.
So that was, and my wife, God bless her, the reason we got married because she's like-minded, she's similar to me, she didn't want children either. So I'd kind of been in a lot of relationships where they just wanted kids. Yeah. And I'm a bit old school. I want to know you, I want to get engaged, I want to live with you, I want to get married. Kids is way down the track.
Yeah.
So that's why I married my wife, because we have that mutual goal.
That's
we're probably both workaholic.
And I guess the audacity of people asking when you will have kids. I mean, why don't you just ask them when are you going to release your feature film? When are you going to have
a comeback.
You'll give birth to your child. It's a great analogy. It is like giving birth, isn't it?
And I'm not against children, don't get me wrong. And some people have said you would have been a great dad, and that's awesome. But again, it's the cards you're playing. It's your timeline. It's how much time you've got.
Absolutely. And you do a lot of things. You are a jack of all trades. One thing I didn't mention is that you're also a casting agent. Yep. And you do help out a lot of people on the other side of the
You're right, Alison. I do help a lot of people, and I guess watering plants. It's giving people opportunity and giving back. It's important because when you reach a certain stage of accomplishment and goal setting and rewards, you do have to give back.
Absolutely.
And I think you'll see that with big celebrities. There's always a charity fund that they give back to. I think it's the scales of the balance in life. So I do that, and I have helped a lot of people get their first break. You're
almost like the Willy Wonka of the entertainment industry. What does that feel like for you?
I love that you said that because I think I am always looking for my Charlie, and I've probably got way too many violets. So I think it's a great analogy. It can be like that.
One of the many things I like about you, Nathan, is how passionate you are when you are on set. And I recently read that you just love that feeling when you're in front of a camera, when you've got a boom guy, you've got all sorts of people on set. How do you feel when you're standing there? How alive do you feel?
Look, super alive. I feel like that's me in my element. That's where I always want to be. And I just think back to, owning my first video camera as a teenager and running around with my brother and sister and doing exactly that. Now it's just a different scale. But I've always done it, and quite often people will say, "Oh, you acted and directed. Like, how do you do that?" I said, "Dude, I've always done it. It's not that hard. What's hard is what's coming from that person's imagination or brain. It's not coming from mine."
Yeah.
So quite often that'll happen. I'll find things that I thought were easy, someone else will try and make hard.
Yeah,
I don't get it.
Exactly. It's a second nature to you. So,
you go back to any successful director, you look at Peter Jackson, you look at Tarantino, most of them have acted. They've done their own stuff. I did a tally recently. I found out of the 40 released films I've been involved in, that only 8 I had acted and directed in myself.
Oh, there you go.
That's less than a quarter.
Yeah.
So, whatever.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm intrigued though. What did you film with your siblings back in the day? Your first video camera.
We did short films like crazy that'll probably end up on like my definitive doco one day. But it came to a head with a movie called The Samurai, which was a half-an-hour short film that we shot over a term break. I think I was around year 10, roughly.
Yeah.
And but like went to some pretty full-on lengths. Like wrote screenplay, got drafts, got a co-writer, hired locations, took it really serious, and that was my first proper short, and then that led to The Hidden with the same people that were involved, which is friends and students and colleagues, and that was kind of just progression.
Amazing. Yeah. And I mean, apart from your family influence, has there been anyone who's inspired you from back in the day and maybe still does now?
My film school lecturer Bill, he was really good. He was a mentor. Acting wise though, it's American, like William Catt, he's an actual mentor of mine, and I love his work, and I've kind of aspired to do films similarly to what he's done, and now we do have a couple that are very on par. And I remember last time, because I will ask him for his critique, and we were talking about one film in particular that he doesn't like that I love, and he's like, you just won't leave me alone about this film. But I went and did kind of one similar, and he said, okay, you win. So we have this amazing banter.
Oh, I love it.
And so he's a confirmed mentor of mine. Yeah.
And how long has it been since you've known him now?
20 years.
Back 20 years. Well,
Yeah.
look at that. And,
Yeah.
and over the years, I guess you know a lot of people. And just going back to what we touched on before, tell us about the 6 degrees of Nathan Hill.
Look, I don't want to get too self-indulgent on that. I sound like a wanker, but it is often a case. Like, they called me out to do a bit on a movie during COVID, and as soon as I got there, I knew crew, I knew cast. It was high fives and like there's a lot of that. It's probably Melbourne though. It is small. Eventually you kind of do play dot to dot. But I love that. I love getting onto a set, not knowing what's going to happen, and then knowing people that are on both.
That's right.
In front and behind.
I think it was
that happens a lot.
Ricky Stenicki was the latest one where you had all those people that you knew.
That shocked me. I was watching Ricky Stenicki, and I think I knew everybody in it, including the extras, apart from John Cena and Zac Efron. I think I knew everybody else. It was nuts.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Just one last question,
Yep.
actually. Like, what was it like when you were first starting out in film school? Like, what was the vibe like?
Amazing, because first day, the teacher said, there would have been maybe a class of 40, 50 people. She said, okay, hand up everyone who's got a script. And I was like, but there weren't many hands up.
Oh.
And she said, okay, everyone else get out.
Oh.
Like, what? No, well, if you don't have a script and you're here at film school to make a movie, you're not serious. And it was really good because some people got up and left on the first day.
Like, for good?
Literally just got up out of their chairs and walked. And I was like, oh my God.
Did they return to the course?
No.
Oh, wow.
No. So these guys are really serious because
yeah.
the problem with film school is you get a lot, and probably the same in drama school, you get a lot of people that are kind of lost. It's not that it's just they don't know what they want to do. Oh, I don't know what I want to do, so I'll do film. Oh, please don't do that.
Yeah.
It makes it harder for the people that are actually want to do it in a career path.
Yeah.
And I know actors will say the same thing. Please don't go and do drama school if you're not going to be an actor. It just doesn't make sense.
It's not that you even choose to do film school. It's like you already have this passion, and it's like, okay, well, film school's it because you've got this passion. This is what I already want to do. Like, it seems like you were born into it.
100%, 100%. And I've never faltered from that, whether I've been successful or not, even with the downfalls and even the days when I've wanted to quit. I can't. It doesn't work. I remember the day I really wanted to quit, and because it was hard, and I got a letter in the mail and it said, oh, you've won the California Film Awards. And I went, oh, come on, man. it just sucked me straight back in. You know,
Yeah,
like, so
yeah.
the universe will tell you. I think this is for everybody in whatever you're doing. It's a philosophy. The universe will tell you what you're supposed to be doing, even if you try not to.
Yeah.
Because you'll fall back into it.
The universe will always guide you back in.
I also think that we're talking about the haters. I think haters get upset when someone's happy with themselves. And people that aren't happy with themselves are the ones that are usually going to point the finger at someone who is happy because they're not happy.
Yeah.
And so that's interesting.
People trying to bring down people who are, you know, happier than them, perhaps. And
Yeah, I think it's like the idea or the fantasy of being an actor or a
Yeah.
filmmaker is very different to actually doing it.
It's
You know,
right.
It's a very different thing, and it's very hard, and it's long, and it's a process. Someone said to me, "Oh, I wonder when I'll stop acting," and I said, "You'll stop when you want to, because no one's telling you how long to do it." That's the thing about film and acting. You do it as long as you want to do it. You
Yeah.
know, there's no one telling you when to stop.
Yeah, you're
So-
driven by your own passion. You'll know. You'll know.
And same with age. I mean,
Yeah.
look at Clint Eastwood. What is he, 94? He's just made another movie.
Oh, wow.
So it's
Yeah.
ridiculous. So you'll do it as long as you are able to do it.
And just finally, you know, what keeps you going during those challenging days in the industry?
Signs from the universe, the project I'm working on at the time without having any other time or to waste on things like that, you know, being busy, but just passion, you know. I would have a day where I'm making a film, going home, watching a film, planning to see a film on the weekend. It's just eat, live, breathe film.
Yeah.
You know, I remember times in my life where I'd watch 3 movies a day, and I did it for a year. I think that I actually kept a record once. I had a diary, and 3 months of that year was just watching film. I don't know how many hours that equates to, but it was, or maybe it was a third. It was a third of the year just watching film. It was ridiculous.
Do you remember the first film you ever saw?
Yeah, well, the first image I ever saw was Nosferatu.
Yeah.
The first movie I ever watched was The Hunchback of Notre Dame.
Oh,
Yeah,
nice.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Black and white.
Black and white. And well, thanks for letting us know, going back to the start there. And great to see you here on set today. It's been an absolute pleasure chatting with you, Nathan.
Appreciate it. It's been great. Thanks, Alison.
Oh, pleasure as always.